Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Get Geek podcast, where we celebrate geek, nerd, and pop culture. Each week, we deliver the best analysis for fans, by fans, on anything related to movies, TV, video games, comics, anime, and manga. We talk geek. And now, here's the Get Geek podcast.
Hey, what's going on, Internet? Welcome to another episode of the Get Geek podcast. How are you all doing this week? We hope you're enjoying a great week. We hope you're enjoying all of the geek culture, all of the awesome content that's been coming out as of late. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This week, we're going to discuss a couple of recent releases and some new episodes of some shows that we've been watching recently. But first, a couple of disclaimers. We'll leave you hanging a little bit on what we're going to talk about this week. Cliffhanger. Some disclaimers. This week, as always, we are recording remotely in order to be as safe as we possibly can. So please let us, bear with us, I should say, when it comes to any sound issues or artifacts or any other audio problems that you hear on the podcast this week. We're doing our best every single week to improve more and more and more and more and try and get better. And we hope that you have been enjoying the podcast and that the sound quality has been good enough. But let us know if there are any issues, please. Also, if you like the podcast, the best way to support us is to like, rate, share, and subscribe to the podcast. We are available on all your favorite podcast platforms. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Amazon Music. Basically, we are available wherever your favorite podcasts are sold. So please like, rate, share, and subscribe. The crew appreciates it. And again, that's the best way to support your favorite podcast crew. We appreciate all of you that have supported us in the past. And thank you to all of you that have and will support us in the future. We really appreciate it. So anyways, let's do introductions real quick. My name is Jose.
Eli.
AJ.
And this is Walt.
All right, guys. So this week, let's end this cliffhanger here. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about. We have 3 topics to talk about this week, 3 things that we're going to touch base upon. First off, we have the most recent Minecraft Live update, and we're going to get some insight on that from AJ and Eli. Following that, we're going to give some impressions of Star Wars Squadrons, the recent release of the Star Wars Flight Simulator game that just came out this past week. We will be giving our PS4 impressions since we're all playing it on the PS4. I do hear there's some PC issues, but we'll get to that later. And number 1 for the week, the big news for the week, or the big discussion for the week, I should say, is The Boys Season 2, Episode 7. Holy crap. We're going to talk about that episode, and we are going to give a little bit of predictions for the Season 2 finale, Episode 8, which comes out on Amazon Prime this Friday, or Thursday really, because I've been watching it at about 10 p.m. on Thursday every week. I don't know about you guys. Anyways, let's get to it. AJ and Eli, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about your impressions and about what's included in the latest update for Minecraft Live.
All right, so to start off, I'm going to sort of give us some setting and get the ambiance rolling in here. So this is as per the Minecraft website, minecraft.net. And I just want to read this opening statement to the update. Quote, yes, it's happening. All of you proved once and for all that enough commenting, pleading, and campaigning will get you anything.
Eventually.
True.
Eli,
Eventually.
you wanna shed some light on this this statement here?
So let me just put it this way. The
Okay.
fan base has waited a good at least 3 years, I would say, for this. I'm pretty sure about a good 3 years.
That's how long they've been asking for these
All right.
these
I'm
These
pretty
items?
sure it recently
Wow.
started popping up during 2020. That's when it started to get really
Serious.
emphasized and people started campaigning and stuff. But we finally got it. Finally.
So this was an actual event that they hosted, right?
Yes.
Minecraft Live 2020.
Yeah, it was 2 hours and
So what
Suffice
was
to say, Eli was super stoked while he was watching it. He was the only one that was watching it at the time because we were actually very busy. But every 5 seconds, he would come out and say, "Dude, dude."
Eli, have you been
Yes.
playing a lot of Minecraft recently? I don't know if I've heard that you've played it as much as of
Here's-
late.
Here's the rub.
I
Yeah.
haven't really been I've kind of lost
It's been
my
corny.
Minecraft stuff.
Oh, God.
If I said yes, then there would be a whole reason for it, but
I'm curious.
it's
What's
just well,
I'm curious, to be honest.
As a-
What's I mean, we all fall off of video games from time to time, but what's the reason, if you don't mind my asking?
I know a lot of people are gonna say that yes, if you fall off of a specific game that you're a super fan of,
Mhm.
technically that doesn't make you a fan. At least
Not a super fan.
not a super fan.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
if anything, I really started thinking that Minecraft started to get a little bit more simple. And the only thing
Okay.
that's been really saving it was the YouTubers like Dream and PewDiePie. So
Mhm.
it hasn't released as much content as the fan base wants it to. But that completely changed. I'll say that completely changed.
Okay.
With the Minecraft
Caves
Caves
and
and
Cliffs.
Cliffs update, and there is a lot to unpack.
Tell us about it.
Oh,
I'm
boy.
curious. I'm curious what they've added to the best-selling video game of all time.
So one of the complete overhauls that they did, one of the biggest selling points of the update, arguably, is that they've massively updated their caves. There are now mini biomes within the caves.
Yeah, 3 specifically. And then the thing that other than that, the thing I'm most excited about it is that they completely changed cave generation. So it looks entirely different. There are going to be lakes, like little bodies of water under the inside the caves.
So like groundwater.
yeah, like groundwater
Cave
and
lakes,
cave lakes. There's going to be stalagmites and stalactites.
which look
Mhm.
cool.
Super cool. So they changed a lot.
There's foliage down in the caves also.
Oh, foliage, yeah.
Okay.
But that's part of one of the specific biomes that we're gonna get into.
Lush
I do-
caves, they're called.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Okay. So
why
it's a graphical update. It's a update in terms of the things that you can build, in terms
Yeah.
of the things that are in the game. Okay.
So-
I do have a small question before you guys get to
Yeah.
the rest of what's included in the update. And I mean, or maybe I guess I should say I have a statement that I think is behind this also. Don't you guys think that maybe the release of all this great new content that you've been waiting for so long might have something to do with the fact that Minecraft is going to be coming to the new Xbox with graphical updates, with ray tracing? Do you think that this is a way to kind of hype up the game again before Xbox Series X comes out?
Well, we have to clarify the statement because it
Mhm.
is an announcement of a release. This stuff you're not going to see until summer of 2021.
Oh, I
so
see.
This is
Okay.
not a release proper. This is more of an announcement of what's to come.
Okay.
They're speculating it's probably going to hit, Minecraft somewhere around July or August of 2021. So we're talking about something that is
almost
not
a
going
whole
to
year.
show up. Yeah, almost 10 months. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I
So what-
kind of do believe.
Uh-huh. Go ahead.
I kind of do believe it is a way to hype up Minecraft for the Xbox Series One X, because if you think about it, yes, it's coming out 2021. I don't really remember when the Xbox One X is coming out, but
next month.
Yeah, very soon.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So then it's definitely a way to hype it up, because
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna be, if you put ray tracing on all of the content that if there's ray tracing for the content that they came out with, things are gonna be a little bit crazy. And
It's going to be beautiful, I think. I mean, it's very good looking when you put ray tracing on even the older versions of the game.
And considering one of the new items is crystals in caves.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's definitely a Series X like update. Because I mean, I look at it this way. Even though the Series X is coming out next month and this game is not coming out until the summer, there's a reason why they announced it right now, I feel like. So that they can kind of hype people up. What else did they add to the update that you guys are really excited about? Like beyond the new geometry and things of that nature and the caves and all of that?
Yeah, so just to wrap up about the cave generations, the actual names of these biomes, we already talked about the foliage, all that's called the lush caves. And the ones featuring stalagmites and stalactites, they're called dripstone caves. So that wraps that up.
And there's also 2 other differences in the caves.
Okay.
So we have one of the other biomes is the Skulk biome. No, the Deep Dark. That's what it's called. Which features new blocks that are related to something called the Skulk.
And we'll get to that.
Okay,
we'll get to that. But they also have crystal geodes.
Yeah, that's basically the crystals we were talking about.
And
what you mentioned,
we'll get into
really cool.
Yeah, we'll get into that too after.
Okay.
So now I'm just gonna run down some of the new items that we're getting here. So I already mentioned crystals. You can use those crystals, if I remember correctly, to make telescopes, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And telescopes are really awesome because
isn't it copper that
copper
you can
and
make
crystals?
You use both. It's like a recipe,
which we'll get into copper too.
Yeah, like
My
a
bad,
crafting
I
recipe of sorts, I guess.
See,
right?
I only saw the 17-minute video that Eli sent me, so I'm there's a lot of stuff that I guess I'm missing in there.
I've only ever watched Eli play it. I've not played it myself, to be frank.
Yeah.
I know it's a good game. I'm not taking anything away from it, but
yeah, it's a really good game. I also want to hear your thoughts real quick.
There's one thing that I'm very excited about, but you haven't touched upon it, so I'm gonna wait till you guys get to it.
Okay.
So
I have one small question, if I may as well. And maybe you're going to get to this, and I understand that. I don't want to throw you off the topic too much, but with the telescopes, what implication does that have? Are there other planets and stars in Minecraft? That's something that I'm not familiar with.
I was just about to get to that.
Go for it.
So with the telescopes, at least as far as like you see the usage of it, it's not so much that you're looking towards the stars, though that is kind of it's kind of sus. If you want to, it's kind of sus. But in terms of the nearsighted implications, a lot of people like you have zoom on the bow, but it's not like an awesome zoom. But with the telescope, you can do all sorts of like crazy scouting because you can. There are certain structures you can go to, like for instance the Pillager Tower, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
The scope is a very nice way of scoping out the situation. That, or if you're an explorer and you've been on the ocean for God knows how long, you really want that telescope to be like, okay, am I going to run into land anytime soon? Because sometimes oceans are ridiculous to traverse.
Yeah, I've seen
even
some of
with
the
a
large
boat.
scale stuff that they've done in Minecraft for sure. Building whole planets and like all of this other crazy stuff. I know they rebuilt all of Earth in Minecraft. Have they not, among other things?
Yeah,
they have.
Yeah. Okay. That's probably, you guys are not even that excited about it too. That's probably like one of the smaller things that they've accomplished. It sounds like it's like, oh yeah, Earth is in it. Whatever.
The other thing that they went and did was they finally gave us a backpack system. Basically, excess storage. So one of the Minecraft is great and all, and technically you do have a large inventory, but with a game like Minecraft and the resources you have to accrue, it really just isn't enough. With these new items called bundles, you can store tons more items in your inventory. And I don't think, no, that'd be too broken. You can't stack bundles inside of bundles, right?
No, but
At least as far as we've seen.
I'm pretty sure you can do that with shulkers. So if they can, then that would be a little bit crazy.
Yeah, like infinite storage. But yeah, that's basically that feature. Okay. And then you have the Skulk sensor block. I'm going to throw this one to Eli because I think he knows a little more about it.
Yeah, so it's basically like a wireless redstone system. It relates to a new mod that's coming out, but yeah.
A wireless. I'm sorry. Could you say what that was again? I don't think I caught that. A wireless. What sort of system is it?
Redstone system. Okay, so
can you tell us what that is a little bit?
Yeah.
First,
real quick.
Explain to him what redstone is.
Yeah, I'm curious to what that is exactly. Go ahead, please.
So redstone is like wiring for sort of electrical.
It's how they conduct energy in Minecraft.
So you just connect it to like a lever and a piston, and the piston works.
Okay.
So Skulk sensor is a wireless redstone system that detects noise. So if it hears like you walking around, it's gonna set off a redstone signal, which is crazy.
That sounds really interesting.
There's a reason why they put that in there, right? And that's the thing that I'm excited about.
Yeah. Okay. So there's this new mob.
I really like this mob.
The Warden, and oh gosh.
Okay.
It's basically it's the first blind mob. So you can imagine how terrifying it's gonna be. It's sort of very alienish from what we see. Its design
very Lovecraftian.
Yeah, and
only in the caves though.
Only in the caves.
That's the reason why it's blind.
The deep dark.
Yeah,
and
so they're like these giant, scary type monster things. I guess you could say, are they?
They're pretty big.
Because I guess Lovecraftian would be a little bit different than aliens. That's more of a, what is it, H.R. Geiger that they're kind of associated with. Okay, so what else about these creepy alien monsters?
Other than the fact,
monsters.
Other than the fact that with full netherite armor, which netherite is the best armor in the game, netherite armor, basically this dude does craps ton of damage. So
it two-shots you.
Yeah, he's probably comparable to the freaking Ender Dragon, which is the main boss.
I want you to imagine this. So
he almost looks like a minotaur, doesn't he?
Yeah. So you guys all saw Battle of the Gods, right? Imagine netherite armor is Super Saiyan 3, and Beerus is the Warden.
Okay, so it's even your most powerful defenses and attacks do nothing against this character, it seems.
Yeah, he's a tank character, as they call it, you know.
And to make it even more terrifying, other than the fact that this dude does a lot of damage and has a lot of health, which he does, each time you hit him, like with the bow and arrow, he gets faster and faster until the point where you're gonna be running for your life. And it's crazy.
So he really is like a Dragon Ball or an anime character. He's like, I'm not even using all of my speed, and then just blitzes you after you hit him a couple of times.
Yeah,
but it does provide an interesting dynamic that wasn't there in Minecraft before, because you had the abilities, and this is from the video that you sent me, Eli. Yeah. There is an ability. You've always had the ability to be able to throw stuff. But there was really no consequence to throwing stuff. But now, if you're in the deep dark and you've got this warden around you, you now have the ability to take a snowball to kind of throw him off your scent, because since he's blind, he's using his hearing as his main source of trying to find things. So now, you have the ability to kind of throw him off your scent by using, various items that you have in your inventory, to kind of distract him and get him away from you, so to speak. But yeah, the whole thing is that he's really unstoppable almost. You hit him, he gets more angry, and then he starts speeding up, and then he starts charging you, and then 2 hits and you're dead. So it really does create a new dynamic for the cave system, because now sneaking around, which is something that you could do, but there was really nothing to it. Now it takes that much more importance when you're in that cave system and that these wardens are kind of lurking around.
There was never anything to fear in the dark until now. And you want to know the worst part?
Yeah. The lighting, right?
Not even that. Around where the deep dark is, that's where you get diamonds, no?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Diamonds are a precursor to at least getting to like netherite.
Yeah.
So even just getting to netherite, which does next to nothing, you're gonna have a hell of a time in the caves.
And the thing about it that makes the warden a little bit terrifying is that the lighting changes when he's around, because the deep dark is
the deep dark.
Dark. It's dark, so you have to put up torches all over the place. But even then, if he's around, those torches tend to flicker and dim. Yeah. So then the whole map and where you're at just darkens just a little bit, and it comes back up and darkens and comes back up. So you're getting that feeling of what's around the corner, which is pretty cool, right, guys?
Yeah. And real quick, the other thing that
No, I was just gonna say, I think it bears repeating that's gonna look really cool on an Xbox Series X with really cool ray tracing lighting effects. And that's gonna make that part of the game scarier and more interesting.
This mob actually roars, which is something new. But anyway,
so we're gonna
bad guy that was actually built into the game, as opposed to what are those bad guys that were pigs or whatever first, and they like turn them into those green monsters.
The zombie pigmen.
Yeah.
No, this warden makes the Ender Dragon, which is like supposed to be the end game boss, look like a chump.
Yeah, this totally turns everything around, right?
But moving on. Another part of the update that has been supremely asked for is an update to the mountains in Minecraft. Now they're not just going to look like silly plateaus. They're going to look like actual mountains. And accompanying these mountains are mountain goats.
And snowier snow.
Yes, and snowier snow. But you want to know the best thing about these mountain goats? If you piss them off, they will punch you off the mountain. They will punt you without remorse.
They just like kick you off and you fall to your death, I guess.
The best part about it is they have this thing called knockback. And so that means instead of going 1 to 2 blocks and, I can just go right back up, they're going to punch you like 10 blocks off and there's going to be no way you recover. So it likely means you're dead.
It's like the thing in Skyrim, right? The
exactly.
Shout.
Yeah, the Fosroda.
The Froshuda.
And I imagine that they cannot be removed from the mountain in any way, seeing as how mountain goats basically in real life climb up like a vertical mountain somehow.
Yeah, they're indigenous to the area, so it's not like you can make them all go extinct.
And the other thing that it's just a brief mention, there's snowier snow, so that means there's gonna be a lot more snow, and there's gonna be trap snow. I don't remember what it's called, but basically it's snow that you can fall right through.
It's powdered snow.
It's powdered snow.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be crazy.
So it's gonna fall into the earth occasionally out of nowhere.
For the last 2 things, and there's going to be the last 2 things is now they've not on top of all of this beautiful ice cream, you have 2 cherries on the top. One is Archaeology and Copper, and
you like that.
That's part of one. And that basically adds another layer to your world. Like before, you kind of had your hints with past civilizations and history with things like the jungle temples, the sandstone temples, and like shipwrecks. now you can actually find ruins and actually do archaeological digs. Like you silt away gravel and you can find something, and you can start telling like the story of, you can start piecing together the story of what the past in your world was like.
And there's also like pottery to help you tell that story.
Exactly. And then the last thing that's a part of this archaeology thing is copper. And that is an amazing touch too, because not only is it a new ore, but it also adds to the history too, because they added the chemical, a real life chemical phenomenon that's known as patina. So that basically speaks to how old the copper is and how long it's been there.
So
and again, it just adds to that.
Basically rusts, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that
cool.
AJ? That's basically. I'm sure you're aware of this. That's what happened to the Statue of Liberty, is it not? That kind of discoloration over time. That's what. But that's what you're describing. Okay.
And it
cool,
even
actually.
turns green.
Yeah,
that's really
it goes
cool.
from copper to green. So, which is perfect.
And there's also a lightning rod so that your house doesn't burn down.
Okay. And then the very last thing, perhaps the most game-changing thing aside from the warden, is this new mob or pet called the axolot. And what this thing does, they call this thing, they nicknamed it in the video, the cutest predator in Minecraft. You want to know what this thing does? Traversing the oceans was annoying because of a couple things. One, you had this mob called the Drowned, which are like underwater zombies. And they have these things, they have tridents. They just make your life a living hell. And you also have the deep sea temples, which are guarded by guardians. And then the Elder Guardian, which is the boss of the deep sea temples. These axolots are like... So what you can do is you can find these things. Where do you find them? Caves or like
lush caves?
Lush caves.
Yeah.
You find them in lush caves, and what you can do is you can bring them in a bucket, and you can basically make them your pet. But what you can also do is you can take them with you on deep sea exploration, and they will act like guard dogs.
They're like the wolves, right?
Exactly.
They function much like the wolves in the regular biomes.
But there is one distinct difference that makes them so broken. When they get close to dying, they will play dead, and mobs won't attack them.
Oh,
and as they're not attacking them,
that is OP.
They will regenerate health.
Oh, that is definitely OP.
And imagine leading armies of those.
And they said you can build an army of these things.
That is definitely overpowered.
It just completely changes the way you approach discovering and adventuring in the ocean. It blew my mind when I first saw that. I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
It's adding basically completely new games to this game, is what it really sounds like. I know Minecraft has always been popular for like something you can make games in Minecraft pretty much, right? So this is going to give you more options for that.
Yeah, it's like Eli said. It's just a complete overhaul, and it's basically everything the fans could possibly have wanted and more.
That's awesome. It sounds like you guys are really excited about this.
Oh wait.
Yeah.
There's one more thing, right?
Yeah.
There's one more thing? Okay.
Yeah. So Minecraft Live, Minecon is famous for their voting, right?
Yeah.
So there's a thing that they do where they put it out to the crowd and they put it out to the players and they said, we are introducing a new mob. Which one do you guys want? So
Democracy.
I think the choices were the archaeologist, but the ice guy, what's his name?
The iceologer.
The iceologer.
And
the glow squid. And was the third one, right?
The mooblum.
The moob, whatever it is, right? So from the video that you sent me, usually the players get it wrong and they choose like the most obscure mob, and sometimes the mobs are broken and it actually negatively affects the actual gameplay of Minecraft, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But it seems like, and like I said, especially with the video that you sent me, the guy actually liked the fact that they chose glow squids.
Glow squid.
So that's the new mob chosen by the players.
Which
what do you guys think about that? Because it looks cool, but I don't know how that would impact the game per se.
There's this one thing that it can do. It has the ability to distract you, and it's a little bit weird. Your eyes glow according to like the video that we saw. Your eyes glow, and you're just distracted and paralyzed. So you'll be drowning underwater.
So it's like hypnosis.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know what they're gonna add to it, but we could possibly have a glowing dye, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
And just to wrap up the whole Minecraft update thing, I actually think now that I'm looking at it, it's a very good counterbalance, even though the possibility of drowning does seem a little like,
Yeah.
Especially, like, it's already enough that you have crazy, scary things like the warden out there and the oh shoot, I'm blanking right now. The
warden, the Axolites.
No, not
called.
And the mountain goats.
Oh, yeah.
And the mountain
Okay,
goats.
okay.
Because believe it or not,
That's
those
way off.
no, those are. Believe me, those will be scary.
They're totally OP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you added the Iceologer on top of that, that would have been like, because the Iceologer also had like you had to approach mountain going and going into like the ice biomes very differently, correct?
Yeah.
So I think the glow squid is sort of a nice counterbalance. Like it could be OP, but at the same time, it's like, all right, it's a glowing squid.
You know, the Iceologer, the way you describe it reminds me of the big Yeti in the old Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer cartoons. Where you had to be scared of him going up into the mountains.
The abominable snowman looking
Yeah,
dude.
there you go. Exactly. That guy.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I used to love those. We all used to love those, I feel like, when we were kids.
Oh, yeah.
I remember all that claymation stuff.
But all in all, this just doesn't. It just seems like it's an update to everything: the oceans, the caves, the mountains, and just everything. Honestly,
You guys are super excited about this update.
yeah.
I could tell.
And I can't wait for you to get into it.
I'm going to get into it. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try my hand in it. I've built stuff before in Minecraft. You know, it just takes me a year and a half just to make a room, but at least I've done it, right?
Yeah.
So I have played it. So
yeah, it's a really good and awesome game.
It sounds like it's going to be really exciting. I wonder, and this is just maybe a rhetorical question, but I wonder if this is like maybe one of the last updates they're going to come out with since it's so big, and maybe they're going to start considering a Minecraft 2?
That would be a bad
Yeah.
idea.
they're used to doing like a year cycle with these updates, right? And I think with
Mhm.
COVID kind of dashed everything with this year's update, right?
Mhm.
So I think they're kind of doubling down with
I
this
see.
update for 2021 because
Coming
we
one.
we skipped an update this year, and they're usually notorious for doing yearly updates, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
maybe that's why this update seems so huge, because they're kind of packing in 2 years worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Understood.
But-
Well, as we get more information on the update, as we get impressions, and once you guys get your hands on it and start to play it, you know that us here at the podcast crew are definitely going to give our impressions of the new Minecraft live updates once we get our hands on them. As I said, sounds really
There's a lot
exciting.
more.
Yeah, it
So,
sounds really
but
exciting.
whatever.
I'm glad that you guys were able to give us a little bit of insight on that, because I know Minecraft is hugely popular, and Walt and I are kind of dropping the ball by not playing it because everybody does. But we are playing something else right now. This is what's distracting us from Minecraft.
Nice segue.
Recently released. Yeah. You know, I was working on that for like the entire time. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, so we're playing another game right now on PlayStation 4. As we mentioned earlier in the podcast, we are playing Star Wars Squadrons. PlayStation 4, as I mentioned, they recently released Star Wars Flight Simulator, which is essentially what it is. Before we, get a little deeper into it, we haven't played a ton of the story yet, so there's probably not going to be a ton of spoilers. We'll try to stay away from that. But what about basic impressions on this game so far? It's a $40 game, so let's keep that in mind. It's technically not an entirely full game.
Yeah.
But I'd like to know what you guys think about it. What do you think about the game so far in the couple of days that you've had a chance to mess with it, Walt?
Well,
All right. before we go, Eli needs to make an announcement.
Yeah,
What's that?
I gotta hop off.
Yeah,
Is everything okay?
No, he's got this huge art project that's due on Monday, the day that we
I
release. So he's gotta go and get artistic right now. So
Well, then you know what, Eli, before you go, you've played the game a little bit. Why don't you just give us very brief impressions, and then we'll let you go and get to work. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
All right.
you played the Fleet Battles AI mode.
Yeah, and so far the mechanics are crazy. Like I especially like how they did it in first person because it makes it more of a realistic experience to put yourself into the actual ship. And all in all, like it's just the fighting style, dog fighting is gonna be crazy for this, and I can't wait to try multiplayer. But it's really it's like putting yourself into like the movies where you're actually sent out to do a mission.
It's what you call wish fulfillment because everybody wishes that they could jump into an X-wing fighter or a TIE fighter and relive some of those battles, right?
Yeah, and my God, it makes you feel like a god when you do something crazy. When you do something crazy, you'll be like, you'll put yourself on like the freaking front banner of a newspaper if you have to. But that's like, it's a really crazy game, and I can't wait for everybody to share their impressions. But
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Very, very awesome. Thank you for giving us quick impressions, Eli. I understand you have some stuff to do today. Thank you for joining us, and go get your work done. And we'll definitely make sure to represent your opinions as much as we can in the rest of the podcast. Thank you, Eli.
See you guys later.
Later, dude.
See you later. All right. So that said, Walt, what were your impressions of the game so far? Basic impressions of playing it.
So I have a love-hate relationship with EA. Because EA, particularly with Star Wars, because they've done some things with the Star Wars franchise that are a little questionable. Star Wars Battlefront, you look at the old Star Wars Battlefront games, and those are beloved. But you look at the new set, and while they look beautiful, they haven't been as well received. Now, a lot of it was with the early decisions that EA made in terms of loot boxes and things of that nature. And I will have to say that they have vastly improved that franchise with the updates that they've done since, the vitriol that they got at the very beginning.
Oh, yeah.
But then you look at a thing like Jedi Fallen Order, which was a fantastic game. You know what I'm saying? So, they seem to have, no pun intended, righted the ship, right? And so now we have Star Wars Squadrons that they've released. Star Wars Squadrons is, and I'm sure you're going to bring this up, Jose, because you were a huge fan of those games. It reminds me a lot of X-Wing versus TIE Fighter.
Yeah.
And it harkens back to those days when you were sitting at a PC with a flight stick and things of that nature. And it seems like this is probably the best way to play this type of game.
Already considering it.
Yeah, the problem is that, for a lot of the people that are into Star Wars, I don't know if this may excite them because it's not an easy game to get into. I'm going to be honest. You have to have a love for flight sims. And like Eli said, if you get good at it, you will feel like a god in space because some of the things that you can do with the game are astonishingly incredible. For me, it's been a while since I played a flight sim, and I'm not counting Ace Combat because Ace Combat is a very arcadey style. And I think that's the last one that I played, which was Ace Combat 6. I found myself, while admiring the beauty of it, I think I played mostly the story mode. The interface to story mode is a little bit clunky for me in terms of when you're actually interacting with some of the characters. I wish they had done a couple of things better with that.
Okay.
The graphics is beautiful. There is no doubt about that. It is a pretty game to watch. It's a hard game to play. I started out as normal, thinking that, you know what, I have some experience. I had to dial it back down to story mode just because it was a little bit difficult to get into. And
that was the story difficulty, right? There's a story
Right.
difficulty or
Exactly.
easy, some sort of easy, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's actually called story mode proper.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think you're correct.
And that's the mode where it's like you're not focusing too much on the mechanics of the game. You're just focusing more on the experience of it and getting through the story. And I had to kind of dial it back to do that because I found myself a little frustrated with the controls. And again, that's me not being as hardcore a flight sim gamer as probably you would be, Jose. So I think your level of excitement and your level of approachability is going to be garnered with the type of gamer that you are. If you're into flight sims, you're going to love this game because, especially when you drop the HUD and you're actually using the actual controls of the ship itself, that's a flight sims gamer's dream, right? But I think for the lay person who, just loves Star Wars for what it is, I think it may be a little bit too inaccessible for them. I think you have to get into the story mode to be able to enjoy it. But again, it's not a bad game. I'm not trying to, frame this as a bad game. It's a very, very good game. But again, it depends on the style of gamer that you are. That's how I see this game.
Yeah, I would agree that the game definitely has a tremendous learning curve if you're not a flight sim fan.
Yeah.
You haven't really played flight sims before, because even if you've played, say, Battlefront 2, for instance, with its fighter combat, it's nothing in terms of difficulty, in terms of what you have to control and what you have to deal with compared to Squadrons. Like, there's so much more you have to manage. I definitely agree with you that there have been some issues with EA in the recent past where people have had issues with microtransactions and the way you've had to grind through games, or like all kinds of issues with the loot boxes and things like that. Thankfully, this game has seemed to take the approach that EA has taken in recent years, or maybe in the last year, I should say, is probably a better way to put it.
Yeah.
There's no purchasable content. The loot boxes don't really exist. The progression system is fixed. It's something that they did with Battlefront 2 as well, after people complained incessantly about how the progression system worked in that game.
Right.
They made everything free and they totally changed it. So EA, they have a track record of being really crappy when it comes to this stuff. Thankfully, this game, especially considering it's a $40 game and it's not even essentially, in a way, a full game, it's good that they didn't add a lot of loot boxes to it. I will agree with you. Yeah, the learning curve is crazy. I'm currently playing it on, there's 4 difficulty levels. There's story mode, pilot, veteran, and ace. I'm playing it on veteran right now. That's it. That gives you a good idea of, and I have all of the HUD elements off. I'm using just the cockpit.
And that shows the type of gamer that you are. That shows the type of gamer that you are. You're really invested into these flight sims, which is awesome,
And yeah, I understand it's definitely different for everyone. And like you said, I played a lot of X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and X-Wing and TIE Fighter on my PC in my teenage years, like 20 plus years ago. I played so much of that game. But I agree with you. But for my impression so far, like you said, if you like flight simulators, you're going to love this game. So far, I really, really, really like this game. As you said, the graphics are incredible. I was playing it earlier just to, get a little playtime under my belt before we started the podcast. Even my girlfriend was like, this is a really pretty looking game. Like, the graphics are beautiful.
It is.
Right. It's one of the best Star Wars games in terms of graphics that we've seen thus far. And Battlefront and Fallen Order definitely looked really, really good. I like the sound design as well. I agree with you also, Walter. I don't think that the way that they set up the story and the way that you go through the missions and go through the interface where you have to have brief conversations with your squad mates and the briefing room, it all feels a little jaded. I think partially, maybe it's just because we're used to, like, when you're in that perspective, you can move around. Because when I first started playing that, do you agree? I thought I was trying to move around.
So was I.
That hangar instead of like just turning to talk to characters, which is how you do it in this.
And let me ask you a question. What really is the purpose of creating a character if you never see them?
Yeah.
Again, I'm still early in the story mode, so in the story proper. So I've only done like 4 or 5 missions, and the missions are pretty long. They're about 20 to 30 minutes long. This is not a game that you can just jump into really quickly and get out of it, especially if you're doing the story. But
Mm-hmm.
to your point, I was, the first time that they brought up that interface, I was expecting to be able to kind of explore the hangar, and check out some of the stuff. And I'm moving stuff around, and all that's happening is I'm looking up and down, and you're being pushed toward a button that you have to press. And then there's that very stark transition where it just blacks out, and then you're there. There's not even that seamless transition, and your character doesn't speak, which is another thing that's weird. When you're having these interactions, it's almost like your character's a mute character, because you're basically watching a conversation between the people, or the NPCs that are there, and they just happen to look at you and include you in that thing, which is really, really very disconcerting and weird how they do that.
Yeah.
Sounds like the Skyrim conundrum.
That's similar. That reminds me of Skyrim is like that too. You're right, but it's also similar to the Half-Life games. But to me, it doesn't work quite as well, because at first when I started the game, I thought, oh, hey, this is a fairly interesting setup. This is a fairly interesting story. These characters are pretty cool, but like I've kind of grown bored with that part of the game. I don't care much for the story, other than, like Walt said, some of the missions, you have some really, really cool stuff. Or Eli also said, like, you feel like a badass in some of the missions where you're flying around, you're fighting Star Destroyers, you're taking out a ton of TIE fighters. But yeah, like it's kind of a little bit too hard for most people. That said, one of the first things I did is something you might want to reconsider, is you might want to remap the controls. I don't like the default controls. I might do a couple of other things as well. This is a type of game where it's not insane to use a keyboard, because if you can get a keyboard connected to your PlayStation 4 and map certain functions to that keyboard, it's going to make your gameplay a lot easier. I'll give an example. Let's get a little bit more into the meat of the game. So the big thing that I think, and that Walt, I'm sure you noticed, that I think is making this game a lot like the old X-Wing and TIE Fighter games, is the power management systems.
Yes.
Okay? So,
which is cool the way
that.
they do it. I
really love that aspect of it. So I'll briefly explain that. The power management system essentially in this game is you have to manage power between, if you're playing for the Rebel Alliance and you have an X-Wing or a Y-Wing or one of those ships, you have to manage your power between 3 systems: your engines, your lasers, and your shields. Okay. And you can put power to each of the different systems. You'll find as you play the game that being a good flyer is very important, but learning how to manage the power on your spaceship is probably just as important, if not more important, because you're going to find yourself throwing your energy to shields and things like that more often, or maybe you need to finish off an enemy and he's trying to get away. You don't have any more laser energy. You're going to, put all your energy to lasers and blast him away. And one of the more fun things also that was in the X-Wing and X-Wing versus TIE Fighter games that ends up being strategically very interesting is where you put your shields. As you're attacking capital ships, for instance, you might want to put your shields to the front and have your shields overcharging. So there's all these ways of managing the systems that make this feel less like Battlefront 2, where you're just flying around and shooting stuff. This is more about like the experience of flying a fighter in Star Wars. And I think that's what I love about it. That said, well, maybe you can expand upon this a little more and how you feel, but like it's pretty tough, I would imagine, for you to manage all these systems and learn how to fly all over again as somebody who is not as big into flight sims as I am, I would imagine. Correct?
Well, believe it or not, I've actually gotten pretty good with managing the power systems, because the way they do it is very, very efficient. You're using the physical up, down, left, right buttons to do that. And even within that, like you said, the shield, the way you manage the shields, whether you're doing it balanced or hitting it front and back, they make it very intuitive on how to do it. So that's pretty easy. I think my difficulty is dealing with the yaw and the roll and things like that. That's the thing that I think I'm having the most difficult time getting back into. The power management, like I said, it seems to be pretty easy. If you wanna add power to your engines, you hit left. If you want to balance it, you go down. If you want to give more power to your shields, you press up. If you want to do, I think that's the framing, right? It's left, up, right,
left, right, up, and down to
shields.
Rebalance.
Right, exactly. So that aspect is actually pretty seamless and pretty simple, and so I appreciate that because it's very easy to get into and remember. Like I said, my difficulty is remembering how to use both the left and the right sticks in tandem to be able to make those seamless turns and keep the target in sights. That's the thing where me personally, I'm having a little bit of difficulty trying to get back into that part.
Yeah, I can understand that how that can be very, very difficult in a game like this when you haven't played a flight simulator in a long time, and that's the chief complaint that I hear from a lot of people. And
it gets very hectic really also at some points. There's a lot of enemies on screen that you're trying to take care of. So with dealing with the left and right sticks to kind of keep them in tandem, you kind of get lost and it becomes very frantic, which I guess is a good thing because that's how I would imagine you would feel in a dogfight that's that dense where you have all these starships in that very small space.
I would definitely say, just as a quick tip, something that I realize is very, very important is you need to learn how to direct your squad mates to attack targets. They can take stuff out real quick. So like for anybody that's listening, that's a good little tip for you. And use your squad mates. And when we play multiplayer, which we haven't done, we're going to have to do that as well. Go ahead.
No, the other tip I would give anybody else that's playing this game is that before you jump into multiplayer, kind of like what we're doing now, do the story mode first, because that will kind of help you learn all the systems and how to fly again and things of that nature before you jump in to these multiplayer battles where you probably have guys like Jose who are very well, they've been playing this type of game for the longest time. You don't want to jump into multiplayer as a noob because you're going to be very, very put off by it very, very quickly.
Right.
So
you want to do either single player or maybe, as Eli did earlier, you can get a couple of friends together and do the fleet battle mode against AI opponents,
which is a cool mode. I like that mode.
Yeah. You know what?
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
As someone who is big on story modes, what is the setting of this story mode?
The setting of the story mode. So at first I had some good impressions on the story mode. I thought it was going to be interesting and fun, but I'll give you the setup. I don't think it's much of a spoiler because it's turning into a Star Wars cliche, actually, which is annoying me. It's basically the same story from Battlefront 2. There's you play as both sides in this game. I should say that also. You play as the Rebel Alliance and you play as the Empire. But of course, if you're playing as the Empire, there's this commander that all of a sudden, after like the Death Star has blown up Alderaan and like killed all these people, he gets a crisis of conscience and he gets upset because the Empire is going to like hunt down and kill some refugees that are running from Alderaan. And that's where it crosses the line for him. So he defects from the Empire and joins the Rebel Alliance.
So this is after the events of New Hope, but in between
not necessarily, because there's a time jump.
No, it's definitely after New Hope, but I don't know when. When would it be before? Would it be before Empire Strikes Back? I think it's between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
Hope? No, because we get to the point where, and maybe it's because I don't know how far along you are in the story missions. We get to the point after Return of the Jedi when the Empire is fallen.
Oh, after.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It has to be somewhat after because there's a time jump of about 4 or 5 years after he defects from the Empire to the Rebel Alliance. And again, that's after the Battle of Yavin in the game storyline. So it's okay, but the game is not, it's not hugely focused on the story.
So you have elements where the second Death Star has already exploded and the Empire is falling, and you have the rise of the New Republic, and the time jump is kind of startling. And I don't know if it's because I'm kind of skipping some of the conversations with these characters, because I just find it clunky, but it just seems jarring that you jump from Alderaan and then all of a sudden you're at the end of Return of the Jedi, and you're moving forward to that. So it's a little weird.
It doesn't give you a good sense of how the story moves forward. So if you're really, really digging for a story in this one, AJ, I'm afraid that you're probably going to be disappointed.
It sounds like it.
You do see some familiar characters. I mean, Ray Sloan makes an appearance.
I don't want to spoil one of them. Like one of them's a pretty cool character cameo. I will say that. The only thing I will say is it's from the original Star Wars trilogy. There's a character that makes a cameo appearance here.
You do have General Syndulla there, so they touch upon characters from both the comics, from both the novels, from the animated series. So they do a pretty decent job of tying the Star Wars canon together. But like Jose said, it's kind of getting boring that we're still revisiting the same stories. Battlefront did the same thing. It's just. There is a bigger, larger universe that you can grab from. Let's start telling those stories. We've been to this, this era already. Let's move on.
Like it's okay to tell a story where the bad guys are the bad guys by now.
Yeah,
in Star Wars.
I was just gonna say they should have like a game where, and this would have been the perfect game to do it. If you were gonna choose the Empire, do
Imperial stuff.
Yeah, like battles that they win, characters that just aren't remorseful. Like I don't see why that's a problem. I would be very interested in seeing how like the general like Imperial setup looks like after a win. Like, do you get promoted? Oh, you did this one little thing wrong. Maybe we'll throw you in a trash compactor or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Let's see some of the stories from the Outer Rim. Let's see those type of stories where the Empire may not have been as impactful. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And maybe you see them trying to conquer the Outer Rim and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or even better,
What's
like up? I'm pretty sure after New Hope they had the rebels on the run, right? Yeah.
Yes,
that's right.
Of course.
Yeah.
So that means there were very definite victories between that time. Explore that. Yeah. What made the rebels, aside from Alderaan blowing up and all that, what drove them to Hoth? That would be a very interesting story to unwind, and seeing all those Imperial victories there, because, like you guys said, we're always looking at the rebellion victories. Well, not always, but for the most part, it's the rebellion side.
But they may have touched upon some of that stuff in Battlefront, if I remember. And I'm struggling to
which
remember.
Battlefront?
Well, two probably, I think.
Yeah.
I was going to say
that was more so like.
Yeah, they didn't. It wasn't a big part of the story, but and to your point, if I remember that story correctly, and I haven't played it in a while, I think they briefly touched upon it, but they didn't get really deep into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they should get deep into it. And the perfect era, if you're going to do it, to do that, would be during that middle, how they got to Hoth. Tell that story.
I could go for a First Order story, too. I can go for how the First Order won its first victories, how the First Order started forming in a game, because you can get a really good bad guy out of that one. Like, where's our Thanos? You know what I mean? What is it with the Empire, what is it with like the Empire always having these characters that have these crises of conscience? Like in Battlefront 2, I was going to say very quickly, like to your point, sort of, the storyline in Battlefront 2, you have like, what's her name? Iden Versio, who gets name dropped in this game also, by the way.
Yep.
She defects on like almost on a whim. Like, I understand that like there was this moment there where her conscience couldn't handle what the Empire was doing, but why that moment? Why was she in the Empire for years and years and years and years and years? And like, this is where you draw the line after they've blown up planets and done all this other stuff. And then her father at the end of that story, changing his mind merely because of like the love of his daughter or something like that, whatever it was at the end of Battlefront. If you guys recall, it was just like, oh, like, you know, basically I was trying to kill you, daughter, but I love you all the same, and I'm glad that you defeated me. Like, what was that?
Yeah, but again, to your point, we're again the storyline of an Imperial with a crisis of conscience turning to the rebellion. We've seen the story already.
You know what would have been a great way to remedy that?
That's Finn too.
That's true.
A way you could have remedied that, keep that story. But instead of it being Iden Versio, the one who defects, Iden Versio is the one hunting down the defector.
Yes. That would have been better.
If you want to tell the story of why the Empire is bad, why they're defecting, do it through the defector. But keep Iden Versio as that person that's like, no, you're wrong. Yeah, this is the Empire. What are you doing?
Either that or show it from the perspective of a newbie to the Empire and his rise through the ranks, within that organization and stuff. That's another story you could tell. That again, it's not the same story that you've seen, and it tells it from the side of the Empire and their ideology.
They kind of have a person that's hunting down the defector storyline in this one, but it's so far, in my opinion, fallen a little flat. But we'll see if the story gets a little bit better, because again, these are just our impressions of that, and we haven't really gotten into multiplayer yet. So we're not going to talk too much about that today. We'll definitely have impressions about that, however brief, in the next couple of weeks, I would imagine. But I just want to talk real quickly before we switch gears about the thing that is the ultimate failing to me, because I've talked about what's good about this game, and I've talked about how the story kind of falls flat. I want to know what you guys think about this, because to me, this is hugely dropping the ball. And in fact, I think in a lot of games, they're dropping the ball by not doing this. We'll talk about another example that we're excited about in a moment, or at least I'll name drop that. But why is there not more co-op in this game? The single player mode is absolutely perfect for co-op. You have wingmen with you in every mission. Why is it not co-op? All you have to do is add more fighters and make the game a little bit harder. That, to me, and I want to know, like I said, what you guys think. To me, that is a failure. You should be able to play the campaign with your friends. What do you guys think about that so far?
To your point, like, especially nowadays, I don't see why people are going away from that. Like, as far as I know, no one's complained about it, but like, why? Like, I mean, I get it. You want online connectivity, other people, but you know what? Sometimes a nice simple co-op where you're not getting roasted by some 5-year-old online,
No kidding.
It's all about the rise of esports. I think the focus is multiplayer, because that's where the money is. This esports thing is really blowing up. And I think co-op is being left aside, because now these games want to be the next game that's featured in the esports championship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so the new Dragon Ball fighters or something.
Right, exactly. So all that R&D is being poured into multiplayer, and that's why you've also seen a de-emphasis not only on co-op but on story modes for a lot of these games, because again, multiplayer is where the money's at. So I think that's kind of the reason why. And you're right, it is a failure, because this game is built for co-op. Like you said,
perfect
wingmen. You don't even have to change anything. Just instead of one person, you have 4 other wingmen there. You can conceivably have 4 other co-op players there. Yes. You don't even have to change a thing.
Imagine how sick that would be. And this has cross-play. Guys know that, right? So like, if your friend has Xbox or PC, you could just get a squad together with all your friends, no matter what they're playing on, and do the single player mission.
Yeah, I don't get it. But like I said, it's because the money's in multiplayer. That's my opinion. I think that's why the focus is on multiplayer.
I think you're right. Because and this is a totally different game, but like, we're all hugely excited, and we even talked about this, I think, last week, if I'm not mistaken, and Gabe made this point that, like, single player experiences are something that we want to see a lot more of, and co-op experiences are something that we want to see a lot more of when it comes to these games. I mean, the game that we're looking forward to already released is we're looking forward to co-op in Ghost of Tsushima.
Absolutely.
Like, we can't wait. Like, me,
which I just
Walt,
finished.
and Gabe. Yeah, I'm almost done. I think I'm 2 missions away because I think the next mission
so awesome.
is to gather up for the con. But no spoilers.
I cannot wait. I can't wait till you get to that, because you know what? And I was talking to Gabe about this on the side because we didn't want to spoil it for you, and I'm not going to spoil it for you now. But the very end features something so emotional that I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that in a game, where it's like, you know, you're doing a thing and you know that you don't want to do it, but the story demands you to do it, and it's like, there's that emotional tug there that is just so awesome. You know what? I've said it before. Ghost of Tsushima was the game that I bought the PS4 specifically for, and you know what? I don't regret it all. But we're not talking about Ghost of Tsushima. We're talking about Star Wars. But you're right. Ghost of Tsushima, the multiplayer is something that the co-op is something that we're extremely looking forward to. And Star Wars, EA dropped the ball, not including that as a feature for this game.
100%. You got to give Microsoft a little bit of credit in some ways, because they have games like Halo and Gears of War that still have great co-op single player or co-op story experiences.
Yep. If they ever dare
take it out,
the co-op out of those games, I swear.
Didn't they kind of do that with one of the games that it made it a little bit more difficult?
Well, Halo Wars is different. I'm not even going to include that.
But wasn't it like Halo 5 or something like that, where it's like you can only do 2-player or something, split screen or something like that?
I think you could only do co-op 2-player before, though, right? Wasn't that also?
No, you
could do 4-player.
Well, actually, no. You could never do. You could do 4-player in like a custom match, but in terms of story mode, it's normally
2
only
players.
two.
So maybe it's the multiplayer that I'm thinking. There was something that you despise it for, and that's a game that you never.
I despise Halo 5 for a lot of things.
I was gonna say,
you know what? Let's not get into that.
We're open a can of worms.
Yeah, we're deep into this podcast already, and we still have another subject, so I don't wanna muddy the waters with Halo and your hatred of that particular game. So let's just move on.
And then there was the
Halo
boys.
It was a good job of co-op, and yes, let's talk about that episode of The Boys. So first off, I would like to ask AJ if you would tell me a little bit about how you felt from that opening scene, because I think a lot of people were really, really floored and like just kind of taken aback by that opening scene to this episode. And just to briefly describe it, we have a young man who's watching Stormfront on social media and is being, in a sense, radicalized by some of Stormfront's opinions. AJ, could you give us a little bit of a brief impression of what you thought of that particular scene when you first watched the episode?
Just really quickly before I do, I can't believe that you I can't believe that this is the episode before the season finale.
The penultimate episode.
Like, I can believe it.
How it has been such a great build up to like the season, and to find out that the next episode is the last of the season, that crushes me, man.
A little bit.
You're getting Supernatural back, so the blow is lessened a little bit.
If I'm going to be totally honest, and this is something for another podcast, but that's another story in and of itself.
Okay.
The opening scene, sorry. It was really crazy. And it was crazy because of how especially relevant it is to the climate of the United States right this very minute. Talking about the radicalization of radicalizing people. You're talking about xenophobia. You're talking about paranoia, and it just it was surreal how almost effortlessly they captured it. it was beyond insane. And then you had the guy the thing that really, I guess, drove it home was when the white guy, because it was a white guy, he was,
Mhm.
every day he goes to his store. It's a person who's not white,
Mm-hmm.
and and when he does, he finally pulls the gun on him, and he's like, "Are you a super not? Are you an anti-terrorist or not? I mean, are you a terrorist or not?" And when he finally kills him, and it's like, wow, it was just,
it was that strange moment on his face,
yeah,
where it almost seemed like he realizes he did something, but then at the same time there was that rush of euphoria.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very, very chilling moment. And um it like AJ said, it's so on point, unfortunately, with what's going on, not only in America, because
Oh.
we're looking at it, with a very, but if you look at it overall, there is that radicalization of certain people because of the flow of misinformation that is so prevalent in our society today, and the lack of fact checking, and the willingness to subscribe to conspiracy theories. And the show makes a point of showing this pretty normal guy. I mean, he's sitting there, he's having lunch,
Mm-hmm.
he's in his mom's house, and watching the network. And I'm not gonna specify a certain news network that is famous for that, but again, they're leaning in toward a lot of the current events, and doing it in a way that is scary if you look at how they're doing it. um it was a
I agree.
very, very interesting way of starting the episode, and it kind of gives you that, really, it wakes you up. If you weren't ready for the episode, once that scene happened, you're ready
Yeah,
for it. Like,
no
what do you
kidding.
think about that, Jose?
Well, I gotta agree for the most part on what you guys were saying. There's no disagreements there. I just found it really, really interesting that the way that they framed it was, so there's this let's call her an ideologue. Um, I think that there's some parallels to some real life politicians, but I'm gonna avoid name dropping who those politicians are. All I'll say is that Ayakasha's Stormfront is intentionally misleading people, but also intentionally misleading the most isolated people in society. This young man who is shy around girls, who spends a lot of time just hanging out on the internet. He doesn't seem to have the most self esteem,
Living at
and
home.
he seems to be looking for some validation in the things that Stormfront says, which is, I think, as you guys mentioned, I agree, it's really scary because it parallels a lot of what's going on in real life. You have a lot of people who are falling for things like fake news. You even talk about, like, this kind of reminded me, and I don't want to talk about what this particular conspiracy was about. Those viewers that know about it can understand what I'm saying here. But to me, this is kind of like the real life, or it's actually like two things in real life, I should say. One being the Pizzagate conspiracy and the young man who went and shot up a pizzeria because he thought there were some shady things going on there. It kind of reminds me of that real life event. It also, by the time we get to the end of the episode, and I won't spoil this so we can all address what goes on to get to this point of the episode. But by the end of the episode, essentially, I don't know how I can put this.
Why don't we put up the spoiler curtain right now and say,
We'll put up the spoiler curtain right now.
Yeah,
I don't want
we'll pull
to.
it
I'm
up.
not going to spoil it, but yeah, like by the end of the episode, you can. I don't know. I think I kind of lost my train of thought on that one. My fault. But yeah, I think that it's really, really crazy and really, really kind of interesting that you see the progression of fake news just turning these people in the wrong direction. And then again, the parallels to real life politicians and to things like that. So yeah, like that opening scene, like you said, Walter, kind of wakes you up and gets you started for the episode. What other thoughts or impressions did you have about what was going on in the episode early on? I think one of the other more interesting scenes early on in the episode, like I said, was beyond that, just the conversations between Homelander and his son. You have what I think actually is one of the more interesting things. And you know what? Let's talk about this part. Actually, this is where I'll take the conversation for a moment, if I may. So we have this episode. We have what I think are a lot of parallels. You look at Homelander, and I think the show, in my opinion, is very much trying to draw a lot of parallels between Homelander and Butcher. Okay. And let me know what you guys think about this. But they have a lot of instances in this episode also that kind of, to me, tie into like the isolation of the young man at the beginning of the episode. You have the relationship between Butcher and his father, and Homelander and his father, in quotes, being Vogelbaum. I think that the episode takes some time to show how, when we are isolated emotionally in certain ways, that makes us vulnerable to these kinds of mindsets. I don't know. What do you guys think of the comparisons between Butcher and Homelander that I think are pretty prevalent in this episode?
I think it's purposeful. And you know, if you listen to Kripke talk on some of these panels where he has the cast, you know, they're not shying away from current events. You know, just to take it back a bit, they're pushing the story along because of what's going on. But going back to Butcher and Homelander, you know, it's one of these things where it's like, be careful of what you do or what you wish, because you know you end up being the person that you're hunting down, or you despise, or you know you don't like. And I think that's where you have Billy Butcher. You know, he's ruthless, and you know he's ruthless in obtaining his one goal, and he really, you know, he's softening a little bit from the earlier episodes where he was willing to do whatever it took, and he would sacrifice whoever it was standing in his way just to get Homelander. And Homelander, you know, in the earlier episodes and in season 1, his whole purpose was making sure that soups are relevant, and they're in the military, and you know they serve a purpose and things of that nature. And you know their storylines are running parallel to each other, you know, in different ways. And you know, but Billy Butcher was manipulated early on by Mallory, you know. And a lot of his character was built on the relationship with his father, in a great cameo by John Noble. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, that was a really,
great
really good
cameo. You know, I loved, and you know what? I was just impressed with, you know, the accent that he was throwing out there, which was flawless. You know what I'm saying? And it's the Lord of the Rings.
It's a reunion,
reunion, right?
Was that, what is it? Faramir? Was he Faramir? I think I can't remember all the names, but it was Faramir and his father,
Denethor,
the king,
right? Wasn't it Denethor?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, so it was great to see them interact, and they had such a great interaction in that one scene. You know,
amazing
that was probably one of the most powerful scenes. You know, in a whole bunch of powerful scenes within that episode itself.
Wait,
yes,
between Butcher and what's his name? The father, Butcher's father, but Butcher wasn't Faramir.
Was he Boromir? I can't remember.
No, he wasn't Boromir either.
He was
Oh, you know, I'm totally messing myself up.
He was a part of the Rohirrim, the horseman. I can't remember his name.
Right? You're right.
Remember, he was the Rohirrim. He was the leader of that group, the horsemen. I don't remember his name exactly, because he didn't play that big of a role in the movie, you know. But he was there, and you know. But
Eomer. His name was Eomer.
There you go. Thank you.
That's what it was in the movie.
You know?
It took me a little while to get there, but yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, so like I said, the parallels are there, and again, abusive relationships by the father that kind of
Hmm.
molded these gentlemen into what they are.
Yes, both of
It,
them.
it can't it can't be overstated enough that they're running the same path, just with different goals, I guess, right? But they're basically the same person.
Yep. Yeah, you're 100% correct on that one. It's just what I find really interesting is they talk a lot in the last couple of episodes about how Huey is basically the only thing keeping Butcher from becoming evil like Homelander. He's his canary in the coal
Right.
mine.
Hmm.
That's what Mother's Milk called him a couple of episodes ago. I find that to be a very, very interesting dynamic because if you look at Homelander, in a way, his canary is his son. So they both have this one thing that's kind of holding them back from being purely evil. Because Homelander wants a relationship with his son. You can really see that because of the relationship he had with Vogelbaum, who was the doctor that raised him. Not really, he didn't really have parents. So I thought it was really interesting how they used those parallels. And like you said, John Noble in this episode, oh my goodness, fantastic. And that part
I
where
love him.
he's so good in this episode and in so many other things. I know you've seen him in Fringe and other shows where he's just fantastic, but I thought it was really, really great how they expanded on the story of Butcher's little brother in this episode as well, and how they have that parallel between Huey and Butcher's little brother, who killed himself a long, long time ago, after Butcher left to join the SAS, the Special Air Service, the military, and their father was abusing them just to try to toughen them up. Very, very weird parallels there, I think, like I said, because it's in a way, it's kind of the opposite of what Vogelbaum was trying to do. He was trying to toughen up Homelander, but he did want to try to provide him some sort of normalcy. He was trying to be a father figure. He was just really crappy at it, just like Billy Butcher's father was. But yeah, those parallels between the two of them that I think are building more and more and more. I think that's going to lead to something very, very interesting by the time we get to the end of the season. But maybe let's talk about some other characters in this episode. I thought another character that had an interesting arc in this episode, maybe you guys will agree with me, is Lamplighter, played by
son of a
Shawn Ashmore. Go ahead, AJ. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you were thinking about his storyline in this episode?
All I could think about his arc in this episode was that selfish bastard. He literally. Okay, so this is going to be spoiler territory right now. I'm just going to get right into it.
Yeah.
This dude, because Starlight got captured and she was being held in Vaught Tower, right?
Mm-hmm.
This dude offers to break Huey in and quote unquote.
Really didn't offer. He was kind of pushed by Huey, wasn't he?
Yeah, but quote unquote, he was helping her get out.
He was. To his credit.
But
he insulted Huey to get there. But
not even that's not even it. So they get in the building. It looks like they're going where they need to go to, but then they go to the Seven's conference room where all the statues is.
Yeah.
And this dude is like, he was like, "Yo, what the hell's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, they really took my statue down. I was really hoping to do it in front of my statue." And you're like, wait, what is he gonna do in front of his statue? And he starts going on about, I wanted to make someone proud, or I wanted to do something right. Nothing's ever gone right, yada yada yada. And then he's like, "Oh wait, no, don't you dare!" And then this dude lights himself on fire and kills himself.
Oh my
and
God.
All I could think of as I was watching that was that son of a.
You know what
I want to say the word, but I can't.
You know what I was thinking of?
Yeah.
How is it that Lamplighter, whose power is the ability to create fire, isn't flame retardant?
Well, here's the thing.
I mean, it is kind of weird if you think about it along those lines.
Not really, because...
But not really also at the same time.
Because you always, whenever you see him use his fire powers, he's always doing it, he has his lighter, and then, it's not like on. He's not like flame on Human Torch. He has like the
Yeah.
little
He's like pyro.
activator, and then the
Yeah, but it just seems a little weird that you can get killed by your own power. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, not even like even a little bit of defense. Like even if he gets a little hurt, like he's not like a little more immune to fire, right?
Yeah, I would think so, but maybe he didn't take enough doses of Compound V. You know,
maybe not. Maybe not. I thought that scene was really that whole interaction between him and Huey early in the episode was really, really good and really, really funny and also really, really explicit.
Yes, it was. We had to skip through that.
Yeah, some of the language is definitely not safe for work in that. Well, I mean, it's the boys, so most of it is not safe for work. But in that part of the episode, he really insulted Huey to try to get him to do something.
Oh, I wasn't talking about that part. I was talking about the other part.
Oh,
with the tapes. That's the part we have to skip over.
That also
the deep.
With I mean, I thought that was kind of funny too, because that showed you how pathetic Lamplighter had become. And what Walt is talking about is with like Huey's basically just supposed to watch Lamplighter in this episode because Lamplighter has agreed to testify before Congress on all of Vaught's wrongdoing. Okay,
on
the Compound B, all of that. And we're going to get to that. Oh my goodness, we're going to get to that. So Huey is just asked basically to watch after him, and they're watching the 7 themed pornography, which is utterly ridiculous. And actually,
ridiculous.
From what I understand, it includes some Easter eggs from the comics as well. But some of the titles of those, which again, I won't say on the air because they're not safe for work and not safe for children. We're a PG-13 show at worst. I just thought that, those were really, really funny scenes. And I have to agree that I kind of saw it coming when it comes to Lamplighter, because he would have really easily tied up a lot of the stuff going on in the season had he survived. But I still really had a good time with Shawn Ashmore also playing a character opposite to what he played in the X-Men films, where he was Iceman, which I think is kind of remarkable.
Did you guys see the meme I sent you over Instagram?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that one. Why don't you tell everyone what the meme says, I guess, real quick.
So it's basically along the lines of you either die as Iceman or you live long enough to see yourself become Pyro.
Which is a good reference to Batman Begins, right?
Yeah. So you had like triple, quadruple layer
there's some
hero
cred
fun
there. You know?
Yeah, 100%.
I thought the Lamplighter thing was cool, and then that scene where he burned himself. I'm gonna take a little different tact, and I thought that was one of the, I'm not gonna say weaker moments, but it seemed a little too convenient to have him eliminated in that fashion, and I guess what they were trying to lean in is that all of these heroes, whether good or bad or indifferent, they're all huge egomaniacs at some level,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But to kill yourself because your statue isn't still in Vaught Tower just seemed to be a little bit too convenient to push the story along.
I think it was more than that, though, because
and again, like I said, I'm not saying that it's a bad scene. I just felt it felt a little forced to have it that way. You know what I mean? But again, guys, convince me that I'm wrong, please.
So here's the thing. You see it when you first meet him, at least before he's like, haha, I'm the villain. You must hate me.
Yeah, he's trying to reconcile with himself the things that he's done, right?
Yeah, so even after you get the whole, haha, I'm bad, you have to hate me, then you see why he's like, haha, I'm bad, you have to hate me. Because he wants you to hate him so much that you have to kill him. It's what he tried to get Frenchie to do. It's what he tried to get what's his name, Huey to do. Mallory to do. He's been trying to get everyone to do it because he just has not had the stones to do it himself.
Right. Mm-hmm.
When he got to Vaught Tower, that was kind of his tipping point. Like, he's coming full circle, especially when you add into the fact that, yes, they're egomaniacs. Their image is who they are. And to see that he has now been so completely forgotten and out of the picture as the Seven, that was kind of what he needed to go like, all right, well, you know what? What am I even doing? There's no way I'm going to be the hero I once was. There's no way I can probably help these guys, even though he would have been able to help them. But he was too selfish to see that.
But I think the thing about it is that he's so far removed from being in the Seven that I think you would kind of expect that. You know what I'm saying? It's not like he got kicked out just the other day and they already took it down. He's been gone from the Seven for quite a while.
But for him, it's different because you even like with the Seven. Yeah, here's the thing: the Seven, sure, they're proud. They're just the kind you look at them at face value, not looking deeper and deeper and deeper into the whole Vaught enterprise. There is a sense of immortality with being part of the Seven.
Yes.
Despite whatever Vaught does. So to see that, but again, we know Vaught. I mean, he kind of knows Vaught, but he just never brought himself to like that point where it's like, wow, so they just really washed their hands with me. Because taking down someone's statue, that kind of like there's even in today's climate, there is a lot of stigma. I mean, not a lot of stigma. There is a lot of feelings and there's a lot of feelings and opinions regarding statues. It's like, this is here. It's going to be here long after we're gone. This means something. It plays into that whole thing. And so for his statue to have been gone, it's like that also, like, the statue is supposed to be there forever. And as one of the founding members of the Seven, he would have expected himself to be there regardless of what he did. Yeah, but that's not who Vaught is. And so when he finally saw the statue gone, that was just his like, okay, well, so there's just, what am I even doing here?
Okay.
I have 3 points to make, and I'm actually really glad that you brought up the statue, AJ, because I think that that's meant to be a very, very specific parallel to things that are going on in real life. You look at the recent drive where people are pulling down statues all over America of people who historically they don't feel have been the most moral people. I think this is a bit of a nod to that, because Lamplighter is not a good person. We know that, but the public doesn't know that. And I think there's something to the idea that his statue was pulled down. And I think we also have to remember that he was removed from the Seven for doing what they asked. Yes. He did what they asked him to do by killing Mallory's grandchildren and by helping the Seven when they're doing all this research on these new soups. He kills those that are, I guess, deemed unworthy. He's been doing all of this for Vaught, and they still threw him under the bus. Okay.
Well, quick. The Mallory grandkids thing.
Quick clarifier.
Yeah, I mean Andre.
It was supposed to be Mallory that he killed. He actually had no idea about the grandchildren.
And I think true. That's a big thing about him being remorseful. He's not as bad as we think he is, because that particular event has really informed the character of what he is going forward after that, because he feels really bad about that. And it was a point where he said he thought he was killing Mallory, and then after that he realized that it was the kids, but by that time it was too late. And I think that really has traumatized him up until this point. So I don't think he's as bad as we think he is.
I agree.
I think he's done some bad things, but I think it was done very a lot of the things he did blindfolded, and he didn't question it. And I think the Mallory incident where the grandkids burned, I think that was his tipping point, and that's where he kind of lost it at that point.
Yeah, I think it also bears a quick mention also because it's a theme in the episode as well. We have a conversation between him and Huey about his own father, Lamplighter's own father. And I think that, you could just tell the story, and that kind of gives you enough context for what we're trying to say, or what the episode is trying to say here. When he was 4, Lamplighter's powers first basically manifested themselves. Okay, that was the first time when he was very little. Yeah, he burns a freaking house down, and his father was proud of him. Like, that's creepy. You know what I mean? Like, that. It's just how with Butcher's father, toughening them up and beating them up and doing all this stuff and being proud of them for being, for
Starlight,
lack of a better term, toxically masculine, right?
Yeah, Starlight's mom.
Starlight's mom is also in that as well, and we were gonna talk about that in a moment. But yeah, like, there's that connection in this episode where they're talking about the sins of the father a lot. Okay, and I thought that was something that, beyond all the other reasoning, I think that when he killed himself, it wasn't just because his statue was gone. I think he was going to do it anyway. You know what I mean? Like, he was going to do it if the statue was there. That's what he kind of implied. But it was maybe. He wanted to get back into Vaught's offices just so he could kill himself there. And that speaks to what AJ is talking about in regards to their huge egos. It has to be a moment. It has to be on the news. It has to be on TMZ. Lamplighter killed himself inside Vaught offices in front of his statue. Yeah, and it's never going to happen. Yeah, and I think that's part of what's interesting too, because the disappointment is part of the character also. You don't get that because you're not a horrible person, but you're still a bad guy. You still kill people that don't deserve.
And not only that, Vaught is most definitely going to cover that up. That incident is never going to see the light of day. So,
probably be like Starlight killed him or something.
Yeah, his action, they probably won't even mention it, because you know what, his action, if that was the thing where it's like his ego was driving himself to do something so public that he would get noticed, guess what? It's not gonna happen, dude.
Yeah, it's essentially, I think, more of the reflection of reality that this show is really trying to push into, a little bit more than I think the comic even did, because there's some things in the comic that they've already changed in the TV show. A lot of things that they've already changed. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other characters, and then in just a little bit we're going to get into, like I said, some basic predictions. It's really hard for me to predict what's going to happen next week, but let's talk a little bit about the storyline regarding Starlight and Black Noir, and a little bit of Queen Maven this episode. So Starlight gets captured by Vaught. Like Walt, you mentioned, she has she meets up with her mother in a coffee shop to have a conversation about her, and her mother, not understanding that Vaught is actually evil, basically has asked for Starlight to get some vacation time, not knowing that Starlight was essentially supposed to be on the run, and Vaught was looking for her because they have this idea, they already know that she's the mole. So she gets captured, and again, that's how we get to Huey and to Lamplighter attempting to rescue her from the Vaught offices. So that, I think that's another great storyline as well. I just I kind of have to push to this moment because it's one of my favorite moments of the episode.
I think I know where you're going.
It involves Starlight, right? So obviously we get to the point in the episode by the end. This is after Lamplighter has broken in and all of this other stuff. I believe this is after Lamplighter has already killed himself in the episode. So Huey is on his own. And they're trying to get Starlight. They're trying to break her out, right? And then Black Noir attacks Starlight in a fun little scene.
Right. She breaks herself out.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. She breaks herself out because she's able to get access to her power in that moment. Correct. You are correct.
Which is a strange failsafe because, he lights himself on fire and it activates some sort of thing that brings down the thing that keeps her in that cage, which is totally weird.
Well, no, it's actually what happened there was, he lit himself on fire. So then you have the whole, the building's on fire.
Right, exactly.
And then, you have the fire precautions, spread, you do the water or whatever. And of course, there are the siren lights. And it's on the inside of her,
which again it's
a weird design flaw.
Exactly,
but
that's
probably
what it is.
But that's also the beauty of Vaught. They think of they are obviously like 10 steps ahead, but it's just beautiful when you see those little things like, we know everything about you, we control you. Oh wow, we overlooked that one little thing.
Exactly.
I got some predictions.
Kind of like that.
I got some predictions in regards to that I think I'm going to jump into, but I just got to say, I think that's one of my favorite moments of the season so far. So Starlight is getting her butt kicked by Black Noir after she tries to escape. He's throwing her through columns, totally kicking her ass. Like, as tough as Starlight is, she could take a beating, but he's like bashing her head on the big, conference table. She's basically about to die, and Black Noir is about to choke her out and kill her. What I love about this moment, you guys remember the moment, I think it was an episode ago or 2 episodes ago, where Black Noir was talking to that employee of Vaught, talking, he doesn't talk, but he approached that employee from Vaught and she was eating an Almond Joy.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
That was a little Easter egg for this, right?
Here's the payoff, right?
Because we were wondering why Black Noir did not like Almond Joy. It turns out that we see Queen Maeve, who of course has also got her own storyline where she's trying to stop Homelander and get herself out of Vaught so she can live her own life. She saves Starlight by shoving an Almond Joy down Black Noir's throat. So it turns out that Black Noir's kryptonite is tree nuts. He has a tree nut allergy. That is amazing. I don't know if that's in the comic or not. I know Black Noir is totally different in the comics. But I thought that was an amazing little moment, and that's like a nice little payoff for all of the great stuff. And it's quickly making Black Noir into one of my favorite characters in the show so far. What did you guys?
Is he dead though?
Is he dead?
That's also what I want to know.
Weird, right?
I don't think so, because it looks
he
like
he wasn't able to get to his I guess his EpiPen or whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he just basically passed out.
Probably, but you would imagine there's probably enough people in there that somebody would come and help him. And it's the old TV adage, right? We didn't see a body, so
true.
He's probably still fine, I would imagine. Plus, so this is a spoiler for the comic. Okay, I have to say this, and I think you guys are aware of this, but in the comic,
I'm not disclaimer, but go on.
Okay, so the show is almost certainly not going there, which is why I don't think it's a big deal to spoil this a little bit. In the comic, Black Noir is a clone of Homelander.
Yes, that is
okay.
Oh, wow!
He's a failsafe for Homelander. He's basically
he's Batman.
Yeah, kind of.
Batman as a failsafe for the entire Justice League.
Yeah, kind of. But in a way, it's interesting, too, because part of the reason that he's so nuts in the comic is because he never talks. He can talk, but he was forced to play this role, and it kind of drove him crazy in the comic books. They're not going that way in the show, I don't think. But I think it's kind of interesting how they've changed his character so much. And I think that because of those big changes, they're finding a different way to make him relevant instead of him being a Homelander clone like he is in the comic books. I don't know that for sure, but I think that that's going to be a lot different than the way that they did it in the comics. We'll see.
Oh, man, but now we need to see, because we don't know if Homelander is allergic to almond joys. Right? Oh, God, that would be the worst. Imagine in this next episode, someone's like, "Hey, you want an almond joy?" And he's like, "Nah, I'm allergic." It's gonna be like, whoa.
As far as Queen Maeve's story, I did really actually think one of the better parts of the episode for me, and maybe you guys can think if there's an part of the episode that you enjoyed with Queen Maeve besides the Almond Joy. I thought she had a great conversation with Ashley, the what executive,
God,
right? I thought that was interesting how like when her girlfriend left, my favorite line from her in this episode was when she was just like, Ashley, for once, could you just be a human being instead of being like this marketing guru for Vaught? She told her like, hey, look, I'm mourning. My girlfriend left me because of all this nonsense you guys are putting me through. And you get at least one moment, which I love about this show. They have moments where they show that these characters are not 100% evil. Even Homelander. Well,
to her, to come to her defense, Ashley is by far being manipulated by Homelander. Yeah, she is terrified of him. So that kind of gives you an insight to her actions. Her actions probably are not who she is, but because she's so afraid of what Homelander can do, especially what he did to that Daredevil type superhero that they were auditioning, that she's she has no free will at this point.
Not at all. So I thought that was a really, really interesting part with Queen Maeve and her character, and
it was
with
a good
Ashley's
scene
character as well. Yeah, and I like that actress too. You guys remember she was in Jessica Jones, if you recall. That was her neighbor.
Not know.
Yeah, that was her neighbor, the kind of weird girl that like had a weird relationship with her brother. She was in Jessica Jones, and she did a good job in that as well. But let's get to the meat and potatoes of this episode, so to speak, shall we?
Oh, God.
Let's talk about the ending, guys. Okay, so I brought this up for me, and AJ, why don't you tell us what happened in the ending? But I'll tell you that my impressions is this is like some sort of new Red Wedding in The Boys.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
So they have the hearing, right? Go ahead.
Despite Lamplighter being dispatched, they have their hearing. And, despite Lamplighter being, gone, it looks like, hey, you know what? Maybe even then they might still have a shot,
Right. They grab
something go right. But nothing ever goes right in the show. It goes bad. It's like the train is coming. You pull the brake, but it stops. It tips over. It goes into the ocean. It goes to the next dimension, and it gets disintegrated.
That went horribly bad.
Oh my God, it did
horribly.
So as they were about to begin, heads just start exploding.
Who do they bring in first? You gotta remember that.
Oh, they brought in Vogelbaum.
Yeah,
yes,
remember
they have Vogelbaum as their
was
witness.
Supposed to be their star witness.
Yeah,
that wasn't happening. So Billy Butcher got
Vogelbaum.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And he was about to give his testimony, but then his head blew up, and then someone else's head blew up, and then all the heads started to blow up.
Oh my
that was
God.
Such a shocking moment.
It was very good though. Like I was not expecting that. You know what I thought was really cool about the scene? Like a little moment that was really, really interesting and that I think was telling. The reaction from Stormfront and Homelander, who by the way, earlier in this episode, they have some interactions with Ryan, Homelander's son. And to set that up a little bit, they basically kidnapped the kid from his mother, and Homelander and Stormfront seem like they want to try to raise the Butcher's wife's kid and Homelander's kid. They want to steal him. But I thought the way that they reacted when heads started popping was really interesting. And this is going to get into some theories that I have later on, but they look somewhat surprised, but more maybe at the brutality of it, not at the fact that it's happening. I don't know. What do you guys think about their reaction in that scene?
I actually thought that they were surprised that it was happening. That's
that's
the
impression that I got too. Because
you think that they're completely floored by that moment?
Well, I wouldn't say floored because I think they're so desensitized at this point. Yeah, but I don't think they were expecting that, right?
Yeah, right, definitely. I think even if in the most extreme sense, even if they were really miffed by it, they're kind of, it's part of the superhero thing. It's like, oh, well, I'm a superhero. I'm supposed to not look miffed. We're the cream of the crop.
Mm-hmm.
I think also there was initially, and maybe this is the change in reaction. I think there was surprise, but then there was that sense that, you know what, we've just dodged a bullet here. You know what I'm saying? Because, Vogelbaum being there was definitely a shock, especially for Homelander. You saw his face when Vogelbaum was coming down in a wheelchair. And so maybe when heads started popping, which sounds weird. I think initially it was like, what the hell is going on? And then, as that kind of washed away, there was like, wait a second, this is kind of a good thing, because we're never going to hear what Vogelbaum had to say.
But at the same time, that's also very, very suspicious. That's sus. Like, that, honestly, Vaught's going to have one hell of a time explaining that away, unless they go, well, hey, yeah. But, like, even honestly, then, how does that doesn't, why would super terrorists engage in what bearing does that have to the hearings?
I honestly think that there is another soup involved in this, because initially when it happened to Jennifer Esposito's character, I can't remember her name, the deputy director, Raynor, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought that was something that maybe was implanted that she didn't know about and stuff. But now, when you saw what happened in the courtroom, that has to be a manifestation of somebody's powers. And I have some thoughts on who it might be, but I'll wait until you guys dissect the scene before we get into that stuff.
I thought it was interesting, and maybe you guys are right that they were completely surprised, and I think this is going to come back in a strange and complex way, because let's I guess put one theory out there. I think it's pretty clear that somebody in Vaught is pulling the strings there to try to make it more necessary for soups to exist, right? Yes. They're making it like, oh, like, look at this, like, people aren't safe anywhere. We need soups. They're in the middle of this hearing. They killed all these people. The soups were there. But that's the kind of flip side of it, because people are going to say, like, okay, so Homelander was there. Shockwave was there. Rest in peace, Shockwave. Stormfront was there.
It's crazy that he bought it.
Yeah, they but they didn't do anything. And also with Shockwave, you're right. It's crazy that he bought it, because, like, why didn't he run away? Like, he's the fastest man on earth, pretty much.
But not even that. Why, if this is a Vaught thing, which I do agree, I think somebody in Vaught is the one that's doing it, and I think it's a very specific person. Yes, I think it's Stan Edgar.
Really has to be.
He's got a latent power that he's not showing, because in his interaction with Homeland, he's never really truly scared of him. There is a sense every once in a while, but he goes at him, with absolutely no fear, But I find it interesting that Soup bought it, because targeting the people within the courtroom is fine. I guess he was disposable, and you can make the case that you're saying, hey, not only are regular people vulnerable, but soups are vulnerable also, now that I think about it. But at the time I found it interesting, because it's like, why would you kill off your own product?
I think maybe that the thing of that is possibly, very possibly, I'll give you this thought, and then AJ, you can give your thoughts as well. If you think about it, that gives some evidence that the Church of the Collective might also be involved, right? Because we have that guy at the beginning of the episode when he's talking to the Deep and to A-Train. He promises them that they're going to get back into the Seven, and then Shockwave dies by the end of the episode, clearing the way for A-Train to return to the Seven. There's something to that too, it would seem, right?
Well, I also think there's something else that I think Mr. Edgar's pointed out too. Mm-hmm. He made it very clear to Homelander that even though Homelander was as big as he is just as disposable as anyone else. And he made it very clear to Homelander that they weren't their product. They are Vaught is a pharmaceutical company that deals in compound V. And superheroes are just like PR, like that. So it's actually interesting that they all died, because maybe Edgar is, if it is Edgar, I'm actually really liking the idea that this could be Edgar's power.
Mhm.
It could be showing that, hey, don't mess with Vaught, but you Soups, you get in line, because this could also be you.
Yeah.
And
I
and
agree.
again, it also plays into even the heroes are disposable.
Very
And
much so.
And also, it also goes into the narrative that super terrorists are real and they're dangerous, because if you can take out a soup that easily, imagine what the general public, we need more soups,
But I think that is kind of to their detriment, because the Soups didn't even do anything. Like, I get it
Right.
if there was like,
that makes the super terrorists even more scary, because they didn't have time to react, in that
It does make them
sense,
seem a little useless, though, in a way.
That's what I was getting at. Like,
So it's
if you're gonna do
complex in that
Soup
way.
terrorists,
Yeah,
at least have
it's
like
very
this
strange.
huge strung out battle if you're really gonna make a thing of it. So that's why I don't think that you can even really consider the Soup terrorist argument, because if it was going to be that type of thing, you would have wanted someone like the the who's the guy that died in the very beginning?
Translucent.
No, not the of this season. The Soup terrorist.
Oh, the soup terrorist. Who
yeah.
could,
The light guy.
yeah. Did he have a
Fire
name?
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
that
He
guy.
did have
He
a
did.
name, and he
Yeah,
also
I'm
had
sure
a slogan too.
Yeah.
They were building a slogan for him. As
Yeah,
well.
like
Black
I
Mirror,
would
that's
imagine
Khalib. No, not
Nakib.
Nakib. There you go.
If you
Yes.
were gonna push the Soup terrorist thing, like, it would be more reasonable if you were gonna make that argument if a guy like Nakib just came in and, like, did his bombing thing or whatever. This is someone that the Soups can fight. This is why you need Soups. So, but the fact that they were just kind of, okay, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and he's gone 2 and a 3 and a 4, and I don't think that lends itself the best to the Soup terrorist argument, because like, they did nothing. They were just completely flabbergasted by the whole incident overall.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a lot to be said regarding that. I have one other. Let's fully commit to what we think is going to happen next week and what certain characters are going to be, or maybe what's going to even happen moving a little bit further than that early into season 3. So there's one thing that I think is important to note, and I think, Walt, you kind of hinted at this. If you think about it, this season they've been hinting a lot at the original creator, the original founder of Vaught Industries, Mr. Vaught himself.
That's
Right.
another thing.
You have Stormfront, who we know is like 100 years old and has
More
been
than
around
100
for a
years
very
old.
long time.
Oh yeah, like 100 years old.
Yeah. What if, and this is a big what if Stan Edgar is Vaught? What if he's had powers for years? I mean, look at it this way. There has to be something to, like, maybe like his body. I know that they're white supremacists or something like that. Like that's what they were to begin with. But in the same token, like it probably makes sense that somehow Stormfront got a new body, or like she was de-aged or something like that.
No,
Did we
I
ever
don't
see? Did we
think
ever see
no.
how she looked like when she was Lady Liberty?
Yes, no, not even as Lady
her
Liberty.
face.
Remember
Not her
when she showed
the wedding
Homelander
photo.
the wedding
Oh, yeah,
photo?
that's true.
So the body swapping thing doesn't really work.
You're right. That's correct.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I get the sense that there's certainly obviously more to Stan Edgar. Maybe he's not Vaught. But at the same time, even if he isn't, I feel like Vaught is still alive somewhere. Maybe he's the one who has these powers, since he was the person who invented all this. He's one of the most powerful Soups, maybe even more powerful than Homelander, because Homelander couldn't do anything. Didn't seem like, anyway.
Right.
Maybe Vaught is still around, and he's the one kind of pulling the strings to try to create, I guess, they're trying to create this white supremacist world where there are superheroes that enforce white culture. This is what Stormfront has been after. Maybe
Yeah.
Vaught is behind that. What do you guys think? What other thoughts do you have?
I think so too, but I think it'd be even more interesting because it seems like Stormfront, at least either because remember, we saw that she was surprised, but she wasn't like completely miffed. Like, what
Mhm.
if she knows that this is his power, and she's like,
Yeah.
"Wait, but I thought he was dead. What the hell?"
Oh, that's
So
a good
maybe that
thought.
adds that extra layer of, okay, maybe this is something I gotta investigate.
Yeah, I agree because it looks like even though Homelander and Stormfront and all of them are pulling the strings, they don't know everything that's going on. Certainly, because you have other people like possibly Stan Edgar and possibly Vaught pulling the strings above and beyond what the Supes are trying to do, especially Homelander.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. What other theories do you guys really have about what's going on?
I
How they're
think
going
the
to boys are going
kid.
to get out of this?
I think the kid is also going to be very instrumental because the kid plays in phenomenally well to their white supremacist, perfect Aryan esque race type, that boat wagon that they're doing, because they've been doing this whole time. Oh well, we want to get the perfect race. Soups everywhere, powers for everyone. But now that this kid is also perfect for them because not only is it a soup kid, it is a pure soup kid, quote unquote. He has the
He was
white
born that way.
hair, the
Mhm.
blue eyes. I mean, not the white hair, the blonde hair, the blue eyes. He's white. I think Stormfront's gonna like, hey, look, this is Nazavanya,
The perfect child.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
exactly. So I think that, and I'm interested to see what Homeland is going to think about that too, because maybe he doesn't want that kind of exposure from his kid. Like, wait, I thought we weren't into using him. Like, sure, I wanted to be a father to him and whatnot, but we're really going to use him like this? Like, I'm interested to see how Homeland would potentially handle that.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there might be like a moment, almost like there's been some memes and some other things where people are talking about like that kid is like the kid from Brightburn, and we might see him actually
Yeah.
get into a conflict with Homelander. But it's kind of true, right? That kid is like he's like the nicer version of the kid from Brightburn, like the kid from Brightburn before he went crazy a little bit. You know what I mean? So I got to ask you guys an opinion on this because I have a thought for where this is going to go, but it's not me coming up with a theory. It's kind of from the comics. That's probably a spoiler that I shouldn't talk about, right? What do you guys think?
No, I think
Yeah.
you should because I was actually going to talk about the differences between the show and the comics also. So if you want to lean into that, go right ahead.
All right. Well, I'll mention one, and I think that the show has definitely hinted that this is going to happen at some point very, 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 very soon. In the comic, at a certain point, some of the boys end up taking the Compound V and getting superpowers.
Right. That's one of the biggest differences between the
That's
comics
a
and the
thing they
TV
do.
and the TV show.
Yeah, eventually they get to that point. It's not right away. I don't know exactly where it is in the timeline in the comics, and I think Huey is the first one to actually use the Compound V, which is why I think this season there was a lot of conversation, especially a couple episodes ago, where he was like, I think I'm that guy that everybody thinks is like just a loser and can't do anything, but can actually be like a hero. I forgot what fictional characters he mentioned.
Yeah.
But I think that it might be leading that way. And I wasn't going to say that until they hinted at it a lot this season. And maybe that's what Butcher is coming up with for the last episode. That look on his face that he was like, oh, I don't want to do this, but I have to. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so he'd be like a Gohan.
Well,
Yeah.
it's different. It's difficult to kind of look at the comics and see where the show is going at because the differences between the comics and the TV show are so stark. It's almost as if and you know what? Kudos to Eric Kripke and Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg for taking the original comic book and adapting it so well, but it's still different that the original the people who love the original comic book are still getting something new in the TV show. Because some of the differences are, like you said, in the comics, all of the heroes take Compound V except for two, because two were born with it. Well, one. So in the comic book, the female who we now know as Kimiko, she ingested Compound V by accident as a baby, and that's how she got her powers. Mother's Milk was born with the powers, so he always had that innate, power in him. It's the other boys that had to take the Compound V, and the powers that they got are akin to kind of like what Captain America is in the comic books. Super strength, extra resilience, and things of that nature. And so a lot of the it's a different dynamic in the comic book because the boys are able to go toe to toe with the Seven, which is different with the way the TV show is structured, because they are inferior power wise to the thing, which lends to some of the incredulity of the show, because Homelander should be able to find these guys very, very easily and wipe them out. You know what I'm saying? But some of the other differences in the show is that both Stillwell, I'm not going to say Madeline, because in the comic book his name is James Stillwell, and Stormfront are male characters, which is a different dynamic in the show. And another one of the things is that Becca dies in the comic. She is not alive in the comic, and I think that's one of the things that the show is kind of building towards. She is going to die, and she's going to die for good. They've already started that bent in my mind with them kidnapping Homelander's son. At this point, Becca then becomes an irrelevant character, and I think that's going to be the thing that pushes Billy Butcher really over the edge. And probably, to your point, Jose, that's the point where he says, you know what? We can't fight these guys on their terms. We've got to take the Compound V to kind of, even the odds. I think the Billy Butcher, his whole bent up to this point was to kill Homelander. And then when he found out that Becca was alive, you see him during the season kind of pulling back. And like you said, he sees Huey as this canary that, and he recognizes that he may have gone extreme at some points. And I think if you kill off Becca proper, and I hate the fact that you have to fridge a female character to get a male character to that point, but I think it's necessary to drive this story forward, because I think that's going to be the tipping point where it's like, you've already suffered it once. That was bad enough. I can't suffer it again. Now we have to do whatever we have to do to stop these guys.
I agree that that's going to be something interesting that we're going to explore probably in season 3 quite a bit. Maybe season 2.
The other interesting point is, and it deals with Becca also, and it does a deal with Starlight also. Starlight, first of all, her attack wasn't done by the Deep. It was done by 3 characters in the comic books. The Deep actually is a more mature character in the comics than what we're seeing in the series. I don't know which one is better, but
he's certainly funny in the series.
The Homelander thing with Becca is very, very interesting in the comics, because she does get pregnant, but it's not Homelander's kid. So I don't know if I should really get into that, because that could be a huge spoiler for the show going forward if they get into it.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying?
Let's
if they
not
get into it.
Then, no.
But I'll just say it this way: it's not his kid, and there is a friction that occurs because of that. But like I said, it's hard to look at the comic books because they've changed so much to what the show is doing. But I think you can get bits and pieces of it and kind of try and figure out. Like I said, I think Becca has to die, unfortunately. I think they've made her an irrelevant character. They tried to keep around as long to try and ground Homelander, but now he doesn't need her anymore because he has Stormfront. Stormfront is right,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Right.
So he's already built his own little nuclear family already.
Just what he wanted.
Becca becomes an irrelevant character. She now serves just to drive Billy Butcher insane so that he takes that next step. That's my opinion.
I will say, and then I think it's time to close out this week. We had a lot of theories, but there's a couple of very quick things I want to mention. One is, I think it's really, really, really important that we remember that for some reason, it seems to me like the boys are being spared. Somebody is keeping them alive. Something is making it so that Homelander can't kill them. Because if you think about it, they could have killed all of them at the beginning when Raynor's head exploded. They were all there.
Absolutely, yeah.
So they're being kept alive, I think, probably to move this narrative where the Supes are fighting all of these external enemies, these terrorist humans, these terrorist Supes. They have all these enemies from all sides. And I think that's helping them to build the case that Supes are necessary.
You want to hear? Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh well, yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead and respond to that. And I just want to give a little Easter egg or a bit of trivia that I thought was funny. Go ahead.
The most outlandish thought ever.
Mm-hmm.
What if Vaught is trying to take down Vaught, but not making it easy?
Vaught is trying to take down Vaught? What do you mean?
The boys, it looks, if you look at it this way, Vaught could have, if it is Vaught, again, not saying that it is, but if it is, and it's his power, and he could have just completely destroyed them when he was with Raynor, if you look at it that way, what if this, in a very weird, very mastermindy, pulling the strings way, he's pushing them to take down Vaught in the way he wants, and maybe it's not clear why he would want that to happen, but what if there is some sort of payoff to that?
You can make the case, and to use your scenario, you can make the case that Vaught is distraught. Like that, right? He doesn't like the direction that the company has gone, and you go back to some of the earlier discussions where Mr. Edgar is talking about we are a pharmaceutical company, and maybe what Vaught is thinking, why Stormfront is at the forefront of this, again with these weird segues, but Stormfront, she is looking at this revolution where it's kind of like the Third Reich all over again, where it's like
ideological,
right? Exactly. And maybe what, to your point, AJ, is that Vaught is looking at it, and he's looking at this corporation that he built, and he's seeing that it's increasingly becoming more corporate, and they're not following the ideological, the thing that started the company, where it's like you're creating Supes because you want to create this new regime, and this genocidal thing where it's like we're going to wipe out everybody, and it's going to be
better world.
Yeah, the blonde eye, the blonde haired, blue eyed superhero, that the Superman that will take over and inherit the world. So you can make the case that Vaught is saying, you know what, it's time that we take down Vaught, the corporation, and get back to my ideological war, and do that. You know what I'm saying?
Vaught is a war machine.
Yeah, so maybe that you can make a case that could be it if you're gonna go down that route.
I think we definitely all agree that Vaught is probably still alive.
Yeah,
I think that's
pretty apparent.
It seems pretty apparent, I would say.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to mention this one last thing because I was, doing a little bit of research, and I saw a bit of trivia that I thought was funny. Very, very quick, very simple. I found this on techradar.com, and some of the trivia, this is, I'll read directly from the website. It's a case of art imitates life when Black Noir's tree nut allergy is revealed. Actor Nathan Mitchell's real life allergy inspired the writers. So that's where that came from. For anybody that's wondering like how they came up with that, I think that's pretty cool. It was like, hey, how do we come up with a weakness for this guy? Well, I'm allergic to tree nuts. Bam, perfect. That's your kryptonite, tree nuts. So that was definitely a fun moment. Plus, it definitely gives him more motivation in that scene when he asked that girl to throw out the almond joy because he must hate almond joy in real life. For real. All right, man. That was an awesome conversation, guys. We had a lot to say this week about the new Minecraft update, Minecraft Live, which will be releasing sometime in summer of 2021. We talked a little bit about Star Wars Squadrons, mostly single player. We'll get some multiplayer impressions for you guys, and we'll slip that into an episode in the next couple of weeks. And boy, do we have a good conversation about season 2, episode 7 of The Boys. Next week is the finale. All you geeks out there, make sure you catch it because I'm sure we'll have something to say about it after we watch it this coming Friday. As well, please check out some of our previous episodes. Last week, we talked about WandaVision and what's going to happen in the MCU as a result of that television show. We talked about Microsoft and the bombshell of them purchasing ZeniMax and Bethesda. The week before, we talked about the PS5 showcase. We talked about The Boys Season 2 a little bit more as well. Mandalorian Season 2 and some She-Hulk casting news. We talk a lot of great geeky stuff, guys. Check out our most recent episodes. And the best way to support your favorite podcast crew is, as always, to like, rate, share, and subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Apple Music, basically where all your favorite podcasts are sold. We want to thank you once again for dealing with any sound issues or artifacts. If there are any issues or any feedback that you want to give us, please let us know, whether it's sound issues or anything else. We're always excited to hear from our Get Geek fandom. So anyways, this is a great episode. Thanks, you guys. And, as always, I just want to say to all y'all geeks out there, as always, stay geeky, my friends.